The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
One return and another absence.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast.
We are doing another one of these shows again, Brendan, where we're discussing another player getting injured after what should have been a pretty good Suns win. Like, they looked pretty good through most of this game.
Took care of business.
Like, this is a Spurs team. I had to remind myself so many times in this game, Brendan. Oh, wait a second. This Spurs team's 11-9. Obviously, they're 11-10 now. Like, they're not a bad team. They might be a playoff team this year. Yeah, we'll see. And also, and the Spurs team, they've got dudes. Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama, Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, who's decent, Zach Collins, Jeremy Sohan, who is so up and down. But Keldon Johnson, like, they got guys. Like, this is not a – you forget. They're like the Suns team of, like, 2019, where they were kind of plucky, right? And so it was a good win, but just frustrating that we're talking about another injury.
Yeah, we will talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the win, Book getting to 15,000, Oso Ighodaro gets the start. A lot to break down here, but let's start with our moments of the game, as we always do. What do you got for us?
Yeah, my moment of the game was I have to find exactly what time it was, and I wrote that down, so I should have had that ready. But it was the Mason Plumlee block to Devin Booker's three-point shot towards the end of that third quarter. The 10:56 point in the third quarter where Plumlee blocks, I forgot who it was on one end, and then Booker comes down the other end, puts a three, puts the Suns up 11. And at that point, that's when I felt like the Suns, I believe it was 94-83.
Yeah.
That was the point for me where I was like, oh yeah, the Suns are going to win this game. It's just a matter of how much. And then you're doing the NBA Cup score, watching, you're trying to see if they get into that, because we care so much about them getting into that. But that right there was where the game was won. A Plumlee block on one end, quickly with pace down the other end. Devin Booker splashes a three, which is what I thought, okay, the Spurs just don't have the firepower. Also, Victor Wembanyama was just not good in this game. So that's where it was for me.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things where Oso starts this game, and that's its own story, which we'll talk about, but the biggest point in the game, I was going to go somewhere similar. I have another one we can get to in the fourth quarter where they basically kind of woke up and really, put the game away. It's Plumlee who actually he had a lob dunk to start the quarter off from a feed from Monte Morris. I think maybe 3 of his 4 blocks were in that fourth quarter stretch before he checked out. And so nice to see. I mean, you said it yesterday when we were talking about predicting accurately the Oso start. You were like, Plumlee's just better off the bench. And for whatever reason, maybe it's just that he's playing against backups. I mean, he did play some against Vic, I believe. Maybe it's just that it's a confidence and a rhythm thing for him. But it was absolutely that way. You throw in some big Booker moments as a scorer, and that was kind of enough. I mean, you like, the Spurs do have guys. I absolutely agree. But this is a team that they should just take care of business against, and they did. I have something, though. Did you text your wife your moment of the game?
Yeah, so I wasn't going to be able to pull it up in the stuff over here. Because when you are pulling up your things very quickly, you're just like, you type in planning and it all pops out. So in the moment, I didn't want to lose it. And I was doing something else on my phone, and I just texted it to her. And I go, hey, disregard that.
Yeah.
That is, I need that for later. And then I typed it into here, but it's
just funny because you were like, hold on, let me pull it up. And then you're like in your text with
I wasn't
your
gonna try
wife.
I was not going to try to pull it up on here.
I was just impressed you got there. I'm saying, like, I was like.
I don't text anyone else besides you and my wife.
What is he doing here?
Yeah, but I knew I gave it to her. You saw me reach her over here, and then I was like, I'm not even going to do that. So, I texted it to my wife. She asked what that was for. She has no idea who Booker is. She has no idea who Mason Plumlee is. But yes, 10:58 in the fourth quarter.
She's a notepad for the night.
She does the same thing to me. I don't know if your wife does that, but she will
I text
send
myself.
Me
You can text yourself.
yeah, I couldn't. Listen, Brendan, I have a really bad memory. I had to go
no,
back.
It's fine. You were in there when
Yes.
you thought of it, and that was the best place to put it.
That's the best place for me to put it. But I understand as I was opening it, I was like, Brendan's going to see this.
Well, now the whole audience knows as well.
It was a little embarrassing, but very funny.
My moment of the game, and we got to just get here, Kevin Durant getting hurt.
Yes.
So
yes, obvious.
Just over halfway through the second quarter, about 4:30 mark, he is running down the court, left ankle, just stereotypical turning of the ankle. There's, Cam Cox from 12 News put a photo out of it. There's videos. I mean, nothing obscene, but definitely serious. Grabbing at it. He plays on it for a couple minutes, but then for the last 2-3 minutes of the quarter of the half, he's out and then never checked back in. The Suns ruled him out, calling it a left ankle sprain, not soreness or just left ankle or any kind of shenanigans. Like he sprained his ankle. And I'll just say this, obviously you get the win, but this was the game, I would say, where, at least with Bud, the exhaustion with this injury thing seemed to get through to him the most that I've seen it. We're at that point in the year where we also haven't even said, I said it at the very beginning, but we haven't even talked about this was Bradley Beal's return game from missing one, and now it's another guy out. So it definitely felt like it was kind of getting to Bud in a way that was new for me. Yeah,
so I'm not in those pressers. We're obviously splitting up a lot of these things. That is interesting. The Coach Bud Budenholzer, what am I, Matt Ishbia, but Coach Bud would have that sort of reaction. So it feels like he knows what he signed up for. But Brendan, we are 20 games into the season. We've had multiple Kevin Durant injuries. We've had multiple Bradley Beal injuries. We've had injuries to guys in and out of the lineup. Last night we talked about, I told you about just my plan to move Bradley Beal to the bench because he just can't stay healthy, and not because of his play, not because he doesn't fit.
Yeah, you kind of kicked Beal and Nurk off the team yesterday.
I was
a crazy episode.
I was ready to kick everyone off the team. I have a group chat as well with my buddies where we just talk Suns, and I obviously wasn't participating in it tonight, but one of them said in there, they're like, just get rid of Bradley Beal, just get rid of Kevin Durant. I don't think this is true. I think this is fandom talking. They said they're useless. And I'm like, that's the level. No one actually thinks that. That's just emotion talking. But the level of exhaustion that obviously Bud is exemplifying, but the Suns fan base as well. I wanted to pull up Cam Cox's photo. The very first response is, I've seen this one. Is a gift that says, I've seen this one. Where it's just like, I don't know what to say, Brendan. I'm running out of things to say about this team's injury luck 20 games into the season. Without Kevin Durant, we know the record. I can't remember exactly who they have coming up. Clearly, we don't have those games scheduled yet. I think there's a possibility that it's nothing. It's just exhausting, man. And it's frustrating because if he just turned his ankle 20 games into the season, if that was the only thing we were dealing with, whatever, it's basketball. Guys are going to twist their ankle. I do it every 5 games I play, and I don't play in the NBA. It's just another thing, man. And we shouldn't get so upset about it because it is just an ankle. And it's anyone can
And we don't know how long it'll be.
No, we don't. But it is telling that they labeled it as an ankle sprain. As soon as I saw that, too, I was like, geez.
Yeah.
We're doing this again.
Yeah, so, he didn't have a prognosis on anything. Nice that it's the Pelicans on Thursday. You should beat that team even if you had no stars healthy, frankly.
You want to talk about a team that's not healthy.
Yeah, and then Miami on Saturday, we'll see and cross that bridge when we come to it. But, yeah, just a bad way to be back to this square. It's not square one. It's been 3 seasons of this. People think just last year, but if you remember before the KD trade, that year was also completely decimated, even more honestly, I would say, than these past 2 have been by injuries with Cam Johnson's, ripping his freaking muscle off the bone, and Chris Paul missing time.
That was crazy.
DeAndre Ayton. Crazy. It was like everybody, and we're right back to it. So I get it. We get it. They're not useless, but it sucks when you can't even celebrate a win because another guy's out.
It was a really good win. It was a good win.
It's the kind of win we were asking for all throughout the first couple of weeks where we were like, can they just take care of business against the team? And they did that tonight.
I texted you before the third quarter. I can't remember. I was like, You got to put these teams away. Can't let teams hang around. And I was worried that we were going to get a Suns game where the Spurs come back and win this game because the Suns let them hang around.
Yeah.
That clearly did not happen. That's what we should be talking about. But instead, we're talking about another injury. Though it's an ankle, it just feels like what? It's always something.
Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Things go from bad to worse in Miami for the Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
They go into Miami on Thursday and they lose 134 to 93 in a game, Andy, that I actually think this is fair to say wasn't as close as the score might indicate.
This was an absolute disaster on, basically every front possible, because even if you were to try to look for something that provides hope, LeBron James, for example, at least offensively, he, like everybody, has to answer for what was just an abysmal, catastrophic showing on the defensive end. Like, LeBron actually broke out of his offensive slump, 29 points, 12 of 18 from the field, hit a three. He hit a three.
Yes, broke the streak.
Yes, that is now done. 1 of 4 from the arc, but that one breaks it. But, in the meantime, he had 5 turnovers and was a part of the defensive issues that were just at times laughable if your jaw wasn't so far on the ground that it couldn't move to actually make the laughing sounds.
Ha, ha, ha. I keep an informal statistic when I watch games, particularly now with the Lakers. Baskets I could have scored. And maybe people can't see, from here to here, maybe, my head, my face, my neck, I look like a decent basketball player. I am not. I am terrible.
I don't think anybody suspects that by looking at your head.
Maybe you just
Wow, all these illusions shattered, Brian.
All Jordan over here, with his podcast.
We've been covering this team for like 20 years, and all these people have been wondering why you never played for him.
Until now. I'm a hooper. But you can be a decent hooper and not play professionally. I am neither of those things. I'm terrible. There were at least 3 baskets tonight in the game on Wednesday that I could have scored. Like, I was open enough that, and like the defensive pressure was non-existent enough that I could have stood in the lane, caught the ball, and gotten a layup. Would have looked like a small child doing it, but I would have scored 6 points in this game. I would have scored 6 points at least.
Okay, to your point, there was a third quarter moment where Duncan Robinson got the ball under the basket and was so uncovered, he actually panicked. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This is so damn weird. And,
he thought they were hiding somewhere and were about to ambush him from a different spot.
He ended up kicking the ball out, and of course, because Miami hit 24 threes in this game. They scored 72 points on threes alone. Of course,
say that number, Andy. Did they hit 24? The Lakers took 22.
Dude, they 24 threes in this game, 72 points on threes alone. I'm going to show you something crazy. I really want to emphasize, this is unusual for, if you're not somebody who, like us, it's been our job to watch statistical trends, things like that. I wanted to look up Miami's 3-point percentage as a team, after this game. Mm-hmm. And I first went to ESPN.com, And I looked at their number. And then as I was about to write it down, I was like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure ESPN will be up to date on this. I'm going to go to NBA.com because NBA.com is always up to date.
It updates very quickly.
Right. It's almost instantly. And on the left, let me show you Miami's 3-point percentage. If you can't see that far in, 37.1 as a team, which is basically the before. Here's NBA.com, the after, 38.0. Miami raised its 3-point percentage as a team by almost a full point. That's hard to do from one game. Like, that's really difficult to do.
I tweeted out during the game at Cam Brothers that the Lakers were treating the 3-point line like vampires treat the threshold of your house. You know, the thing like vampires cannot enter without permission, as if the Lakers were simply not allowed to cross that line defensively. I mean, even in the second quarter, there was a moment where the Lakers, because the Lakers got off to a terrible start. I mean, and JJ Redick talked about this after the game, like they were so far behind so quickly. 23-9 was, the run at the beginning of the game. They were behind so quickly, kind of took them out of what they were doing. I'm not sure what that was, but whatever it was,
I'm not sure they
out.
knew what. I mean, yeah. I'm not even being
facetious, I don't know
about this. If you listen to Redick and the players, I'm not sure they knew what they were doing to be taken out of it.
So I'm watching them, and they get to within 8, they get to within 7. I think 7 was the closest that it got, but it's like, okay, making a couple shots. I hesitate to say getting stops because they didn't really get stops. Miami just missed the same wide open threes that they were making at the beginning of the game. And look, I mean, I noted this. The everydayers will really heard us talk about this for a bunch of games now. Say, take away the Utah game, I guess, and some decent defense against Oklahoma City. They cannot get enough stops to really even think about 93 points on the heels of 80 points. Like, they've got major problems on both sides of the ball. Clearly need Austin Reeves to get pumped back in the lineup to get a little more firepower. But they are so they are so far beyond bad defensively. They're not bad by, you want to be a Western Conference contender, you got to really pick it up. Like, you're not bad by fringy playoff team standards. You are catastrophically bad.
They're bad by lottery team standards.
By bad lottery team standards. By the Washington Wizards.
Like, standards. You would think they were in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes the way they're playing defense right now.
Yes. And, God, New Orleans must love this. But Jake Redick called it embarrassing. He said, I'm embarrassed, we're embarrassed and all that. And it is. I mean, it is.
It was a word used by LeBron and AD. They both used the word embarrassing. That may have been like the buzzword from the post-game speech / tongue lashing / what the F are you people doing from JJ Redick. But 2 for 2 in terms of players that I heard afterwards talk, both use the word embarrassing.
So here's the question that I want to ask coming out of the break. And look, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, like, listening back to shows, kind of, we watch the tape, Andy, as they say, what have we been doing better? How could we make the show better? Or things we could do. One of the things, like, give a little rundown, let people know what's coming, and all. What's coming is defense, and like there's nothing to even run down in a game this bad. You lose 134-93, and again, reminder, it wasn't that close. What does it mean to be embarrassed? That's my question. If everybody's embarrassed, so what? What does that mean for what you do on the court?
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can always turn a profit on a game between two sub-500 teams if you want. The Pacers head to Brooklyn to take on the Nets and are slight favorites. FanDuel has Indiana laying 2 points for tonight's tilt, if you want to call it that. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
The Atlanta Hawks are red hot. They've now won 5 consecutive games, including...
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast.
A 119-104 win for the Hawks on the road in Milwaukee. Their 5th consecutive victory. Now the active leader as far as the longest streak in the Eastern Conference, 5 games in a row after ending Milwaukee's 7-game winning streak on this particular evening. For reference, the Hawks did not win 5 games in a row all last season. They had 3 different 4-game winning streaks. None of them reached 5. This time around, they've won 5 games in a row, and they went into Milwaukee as underdogs and won convincingly. And with this win, the Hawks are now up to 12-11 on the season. Not groundbreaking, obviously, but going from 7-11 to 12-11, and their first time over 500 since October. Pretty good vibes tonight for Atlanta in this one, and a very impressive two-way performance from this Hawks team. Kind of a rough start, actually. They were down by 10 points in the first 5 minutes or so of this contest, and the offense came alive. They were up by 11 at halftime. They had one hiccup in the third quarter where the Bucks made 4 consecutive threes to get back into the game, but the Hawks impressively actually were resilient, stabilized, and held the Bucks at arm's length the entire second half. Basically, it was not pretty in the fourth quarter. It was 20-17 in the fourth quarter on the whole, but defensively they held up the entire game. And I want to begin my analysis of this contest on that side of the floor, because the Hawks honestly have been really, really good defensively for quite some time now. And if you follow this team closely over several years, they have not played this well defensively for this long of a period of time since they were going to the conference finals. The second half of that season in 2021, they were playing at a top 12 level defensively. They're playing at that level once again right now. It's only a small-ish sample size, but they're playing very well defensively. And in this game, at a 100 defensive rating. That means they allowed 1 point per possession, 104 points on 104 possessions. That is tremendous, especially when you take into account that Milwaukee came into this game on a 7-game win streak, yes, but they had a 120 offensive rating in those 7 games. This is a good offensive team that the Hawks were playing against on the road in their building. And yes, the Bucks played last night. There's a little bit of adjustment there for sure. They were probably a little bit tired. All that said, the Hawks played very well defensively in this game. In fact, Milwaukee made 6 more threes than Atlanta did. And that's a tough way to live, to be down 18 points at the 3-point line. But the Hawks did an awesome job overall in this game. They were great on the glass. They had an 80% defensive rebound rate, which is uber elite, basically. Nothing was given to the Bucks at all from the Hawks in this game on the margins on defense. They forced 18 turnovers, including 16 live ball steals. That's fantastic habit creation. Obviously, Dyson Daniels has been the theme of that all year long for the Hawks, but it was not just Dyson in this game. Everyone was very active getting steals and deflections and just being generally creating havoc in this one. The only thing that was kind of a hiccup, at least a small one, was the Bucks took 35 free throw attempts. And I got to say, the officiating was not my favorite in this game. It was not, I like to see free-flowing basketball. It was not free-flowing. There were lots of stoppages, lots of fouls, lots of whistles in general. Giannis, who is an all-time great player, but Giannis took more free throw attempts than the entire Hawks team by 4. He took 26 individually. But on the bright side, after watching this game back, and even in real time, the Hawks did not play poorly defensively at all. It was not, sometimes you can have free throw attempts and you give up too many, you foul too much because you're playing bad defense or messing up. In this game, it really wasn't that. It was mostly solid positioning. Giannis is good at getting to the line, obviously, but Atlanta did a good job everywhere else, essentially, defensively. They held the Bucks well below their norms, inside the arc, outside the arc, ball security, rebounding. All of those things were positive in the direction for Atlanta. And in the last 5 games, during this 5-game winning streak, the Hawks have a 105 defensive rating. That is a top 5 level in the league. Again, it's only 5 games, but 3 of those games were against really, really good offenses. Cleveland twice, and now Milwaukee. The 2 games in the middle of that, less so. But Atlanta's defense has been really strong all year long, at least since the beginning of the season when they were getting towards the 3-point line. But as I kind of predicted then, to be honest, it's not like a victory lap for me, but the Hawks were getting unlucky from 3-point range. And now that that's stabilized just a little bit, the results have kind of followed, and the Hawks have been pretty good. They came into this game at cleaning the glass 16th in the NBA in defensive rating this season. That's just league average, but this team being league average defensively or better is a huge, huge step forward. We'll get into that more probably later on this week, but still, the Hawks were really good defensively in this game, and that allowed them to just be pretty good on offense. I leave with the defense on purpose because the offense was fine in this game. They had a 114 offensive rating. That is solid. It's not special, but it's totally solid on the road. There was one stretch in the first half where they were truly dominant offensively for about 10 minutes. Just as a spoiler alert for later on, they scored 30 points in 15 possessions at one point in the first half. That's pretty impressive. But other than that, it wasn't like they were just lighting the scorebook up the entire game. They shot 44% from the field. That's not great. 28% from three. Doing that on the road, shooting that poorly from three on the road, and winning by 15 points is kind of surprising, especially for this team that's kind of reliant in some ways on making shots, at least in the past. But if you had just told me what the Hawks shot from the field and then said, okay, predict the score, I would not have said 119-104 in favor of Atlanta, but they overcame that. It was helpful that they shot 91% at the line. They were 20-22. That is a very solid thing to have happen, and the Hawks are not always great there, so that was good to see that. Only 2 missed free throws the entire game. But importantly, they were truly awesome on the margins, not only on defense, but also on offense. They had 16 offensive rebounds that led to 21 second chance points. They were very active and flying around the glass. A lot of that was Capella, but also Richeche and Jalen Johnson. It was a team effort there. They had 30 fast break points. The Hawks were totally dominant in transition in this game, offensively and defensively. They got back. That's always a good sign. And also they took advantage of when they had the opportunities to run, and they were effective there. They also only had 14 turnovers, something Quinn's been banging the drum on for a while. Also, I have been saying this on the show as well. The Hawks, when they're not turning the ball over right now, are really, really strong on both ends of the floor because their offense is better, but also the defense is in a better position. When you're turning the ball over a lot, your defense is in a bad spot and so forth. It's never isolated to one side of the floor or the other. They all feed on each other. And the Hawks in this game, to their credit, only had 14 turnovers in a fast-paced game, and that is very good. In fact, in the second half, Atlanta shot the ball terribly, 35% from the field after halftime, but only 5 turnovers in the second half. And that was a huge, huge factor to hold on to what was already a solid lead. It wasn't always pretty, but they got it. And also really good balance in this game. No one is playing like incredibly well offensively. Maybe you could say DeAndre Hunter, who we'll talk about more in a second. Jalen's pretty good in this game too, but no one's putting up like gaudy scoring numbers individually in this run. Hunter is on a per-minute basis, to be sure. But in this game, another strong balance night when they have 8 of the 9 guys who played for Atlanta scored at least 8 points. They had, I believe, 4 guys, 15 points or more. Everyone was relatively efficient other than Trey. And one more thing here, like Trae Young is their best player, their best offensive player by a lot. He had 17 points on 22 shots in this game. And they still won by 15 points on the road. That means that, A, everybody else is playing well. Trey's passing is also impressive, but also, again, defensively, it was really impressive. Yeah, they gave up 56 points combined to Dame and Giannis. That's an okay number. Everybody else, and I mean everybody else, was basically under control for the Bucks in this one. And I don't want to keep ranting and raving about it too much, but the Hawks were really, really impressive. It's one game, but it's also not one game. It's 5 games in a row now that they played really well. They weren't incredible in the 2 wins over Charlotte and New Orleans. Those were more of the taking care of business variety, as I described on the podcast on Saturday night and on Monday night. But in the 2 wins against Cleveland and the win tonight, they just outplayed teams that are supposed to be upper-level teams in the Eastern Conference.